All right. We're live here. We're live there. All right. We're just getting started. Welcome. All right. Let's get started here. Got a good one tonight. If you've never had to fire someone, this will come in handy. Especially, hopefully you won't have to fire too many people, but if you do. All right, here we go. Welcome. So, inevitably, you'll have to fire somebody. Welcome. It's just the way it goes with the business. So, firing people is never easy, right? But it doesn't have to be chaotic or emotional. And when it's handled properly, it protects the team, the clients, your business. Most remodelers wait way too long to fire people. You'll end up tolerating the wrong behavior, hoping things will magically improve. But the longer you wait, the more you risk. You take on, you miss deadlines, you lose trust, and then there's just more and more chaos. Welcome. So today I'll walk you through like a little 3-step. It's a framework, and it's how you can fire quickly. You do it fast, but not reckless. It keeps you legally and ethically sound. It protects you. Last thing you want to do is have your unemployment rates, insurance rates jump up through the roof and all that. So you do have to have a documented process for the way you fire people. And then it's not that big of a deal. We fired multiple people in the beginning because we just didn't hire the best in the beginning, right? Like there was like a 2-year period where I hired several people that I then had to fire. And then after that, it was pretty good for a long time. And you'll have to go through the same process. But never, especially when you bring in on like W-2 employees, you got to document stuff. That makes it much easier to separate. And then you won't have to be hit with their unemployment insurance burden as bad. Okay. Because that's a real thing that starts happening to guys. You hire somebody, they're not the best, they're taking advantage of you. And then next thing you know, you fire them. Then your rates go up because now they're collecting unemployment. It's a shitty system all the way around. So what has happened is, as a remodeler, you have to have a really good process now for firing people if you don't want your rates going up. Okay. If you don't care about that, then just do whatever you want. But when you have a set process, then it protects you. All right. So when you fire someone in the heat of the moment, you'll probably say things you wished you wouldn't have, and lawsuits happen, especially as you start making money. All right. Some of you guys aren't worried about it because you're not making any money right now. But when you start making serious money, like when you're doing a couple $1,000,000 a year, you become a target. So, last thing you want is to work real hard, make a profit, and then lose a lot of it because you had some incident with some idiot employee. All right. So, you don't want to put yourself at that big of a risk. You need a very clear, concise, repeatable process. And understand that you have a lot more to lose than the employee when you're firing somebody. That's the problem. In a state like mine that's very litigious, right? Like you have vehicles, most likely, you have equipment, you have tools, you have reputation. So when you fire somebody, right, they can do a lot of damage to your business in multiple ways. So you need to have a really good process to document that so that you minimize all that stuff that could come back on you later. Like the person that you're firing is probably a loser already. So it's not like you're really hurting their reputation. So the balance of power gets out of whack when you fire someone. All right. You have a lot more to lose. So let's go through this three-step process. And for some guys, this is very frustrating. I hated this in the beginning because I'm the type, like, once I've recognized that you're just an ass or a liability, I want you done. I want to fire you. And that hurt me in the beginning, right? And I had to learn how to do it differently so that it stopped costing me so much money. So, first thing you have to do, you have somebody that does something, as long as it's not like a criminal offense where they're like physically fought somebody or have threatened or pulled a gun or whatever. But like, if they've just done something that they're not supposed to do and it's pretty egregious to the point where you're like, this sucks. I don't want this person working here anymore. You have to document it the first time. And to do that, you have to bring them in or you have to meet them on site. You have to have a written piece of paper that they sign, you sign, or it has to be something digital that both of you sign that acknowledges that you had a discussion about that thing that they either did, had done, were doing, and you have to share with them that this is what you would rather them do. That's it. That's the conversation. Hey, Joe, you can't do that anymore. That's not part of our policy. This is how you're supposed to be. This is the policy. And you just acknowledge it. And you say, hey, look, it's probably just a misunderstanding. Moving on forward, I'm sure we'll never have to talk about it again. They sign it, you sign it, you move on. Now, it's a private conversation. It's calm. You're respectful. Um, you identify the issue. You reference your standard and you clarify your expectations. So that when that employee leaves, there should be no confusion about how they're supposed to do the thing the correct way. All right. So, for example, hey, Joe, we noticed today this specific thing. You were late a half hour. You walk around the job, you don't have a tool belt on, and you're just you disappear for a half hour today, and we don't know what's going on, right? Like whatever the infraction is, you dropped a bunch of stuff. Whatever, I don't know. Whatever the thing is, you have to explain to them that this is what it is. That the reason why you're meeting with them. Okay. Then you ask them, hey, explain to me why you did that thing, why you're doing this. Help me understand from your perspective. Okay. Because you want to get a good understanding. You could have it all wrong. You don't know. Most likely you don't. But just in case, you give the benefit of the doubt the first time. Okay. Now you give them the standard that you expect them to do going forward. Hey, this is how you're supposed to do it from going forward. You're supposed to be here 10 minutes before your shift starts because right at 7 o'clock, you're supposed to have the tools on, be on site, be working, not you're parking your car at 7, getting your tool belt and tools together, and then showing up at 7:20, right? Whatever the thing is. All right. You document it, date, time, incident. They sign it, you sign it, you provide them a copy, you keep a copy, whether it's digital, printed, whatever. All right. And then you move on. Most likely it's going to happen again. So on your his second or her second offense, you have another meeting. This time you have a written plan. You document what the repeat thing or the second thing is that they've done wrong now. Hey, you did this the other day. Now you're doing this. And we want you to be this way going forward. Here's the deadline. We're going to give you 2 weeks to get your act together, straighten up. We're going to provide you with training if necessary. This is how this is what we think the steps that we're going to put in place to help you succeed because we want you to succeed, right? And the plan addresses what was wrong, what success looks like, and then the support that you're going to provide to help get them there. And then you let them know, hey, if there is a third infraction, that's termination. You just let them know. Like you put it on paper and you let them know. We're hoping that doesn't come to that, but we're just letting you know where we're at. Some people have a confrontational attitude and they just need to test you. Whatever. All right. So most likely you'll say, "Hey Joe, we've talked about this before. Here's the written performance plan. We're going to get you back on track. We want you to succeed. So here's how we're going to support you. But if these expectations aren't met, we'll have to part ways." You sign it, they sign it, it's dated. You take a copy, they take a copy, you email it, whatever, you print it. Okay. So now, week or two goes by, third incident, most likely. This is usually what happens, I've found with most guys. There's going to be a third incident. That's the one where now you're firing. So you meet again, you either have them come to the office, you go to the job site, whatever, and you have another piece of paper or something digital. This was the expectation. This is the infraction that's taken place. Today's your last day. We thank you for working here. It's just not going to work out. For whatever reason, the way that we would like for you to work here doesn't seem to work for you. So we're going to wish you the best wherever you go. Congratulations. You don't have to put up with us anymore. And again, they sign it, you sign it. They might not want to sign it, but whatever. I would say, hey, you sign this, then we'll get you your final paycheck. I don't know legally. You have to see if that's allowed in your state or not. But ideally, you get them to sign the thing. Now, knowing that they're being fired, they you just have to play it by ear. So that's the policy. That's the 3 steps. And you do that, and you'll be able to fire people and make it a lot easier to move on and keep your business going. Several of the people we had to let go, our unemployment insurance did not get adjusted at all. And I think 1 or 2 of the guys actually got denied unemployment because what we do is in our state, when you fire someone like that, we turn over the supporting documents. We have a file, right? All 3 incidences are on file, and we provide them that paperwork, that paper trail. So the unemployment insurance office, they understand this is why so and so got fired. And if you do that, it should keep your rates relatively low and you shouldn't get dinged, right? Because now if you're at fault, that's different. But this is when the employee is clearly not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so you decide to terminate them. All right. Anybody have any questions about the hiring, firing processes? It's a game. I'm telling you, once you start documenting things, most behaviors get straightened out, but some guys, they won't. It just depends on the maturity level. Some people will make a mistake they don't know, but generally not. I mean, I have numerous employees. I've never had to have a conversation one time ever. And then there was those couple guys that, we had to give them the 3. It probably takes a month to go through that process typically, because usually you give them the 1 week, they might not do anything the rest of the week. Then the following week, they'll have another infraction. You'll do something, write them up again. Then they'll go the rest of the week without. Then the 3rd week, they usually have another thing. It becomes like a passive aggressive thing with a lot of guys. So anyway, it just is what it is. That's what we've learned over the years. Just document it, and then you'll be able to move on, and the headache will be gone. Hey, Jay Allen. What's happening? Hold on. Why is your comment? Yeah, exactly. No, 1099, those are subcontractors. Exactly. I'm referring to W2. If I misspoke, please pardon me. No, I'm referring to W2 employees. And what's funny is this is a touchy topic on TikTok. Like, it's already filtering comments. I several of the videos I try to talk about hiring and firing people, TikTok just shuts them down. They don't want anybody to see the videos. It's crazy. Okay, you're just clarifying. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, so technically, there's a separation agreement that you do with a subcontractor where you're letting them know you're not going to be using their services anymore. Correct. But the reason we do this documentation so in my state's very litigious. I've talked about this before. People can sue you for anything. And they'll win because there's a victim mentality in my state, right? For whatever reason, the people that do nothing and take advantage of the system, they get the rewards. So you have to document a lot of things to protect yourself. It's the craziest. We just that's the way the state is run. It's a victim mentality. Yeah, so, it's a lot of people, blur that 1099 line, right? So, like, the government really cracked down on a lot of contractors because of that whole scenario, right? You have a ton of people that didn't like, it's pretty shitty when you think about it. The company doesn't wanna pay benefits. That's what they're trying to avoid. They don't wanna have to pay unemployment insurance. They don't wanna pay any of the tax the burden. They don't wanna pay the labor burden. So they wanna put you as a 1099, but that hurts you in the long run because you're not gonna get Social Security for that. So, like, the whole system kinda a lot of employees are getting screwed when their employer tries to technically classify them as a 1099, but they're really, for every intent and purpose, they're an employee. They're told what time to show up, how to do the job. The company supplies the stuff. At that point, you're an employee. The IRS has gotten a little better on the standards. It's pretty cut and dry, whether you're a 1099 or a W-2. But yeah, a lot of companies do shitty things because they don't figure it's a mentality process, right? Think about it, you're a business owner and you're looking at your expenses going up every year, and it's hard to take on the challenge and say, well, I guess I just have to learn how to sell better and sell the jobs for more money so that I can provide my employees with a good pay. I can provide myself with a good benefit, right? It's easy to, I, I'm cautious the way I say this. It's easy to blame the system and just then say, well, I'm not going to do it that way because I want to, stick it to the person or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's just like, oh, I got to learn how to sell more. I got to learn how to get better clients. You know, there is a market for both for sure. So, but yeah. Yeah, so like a we with W with 1099s, we'll do a termination of services more, same thing. You'll write them up and let them know like, hey, but that's more of a performance standard that they're not meeting, right? And you just usually at the end, I've only had to fire one or two subs mid job, and that again, that was in the early days. I just I made all the mistakes. You know, I didn't know how to check references. I didn't realize that you really have to drive to people's if you're working with if you're looking to get a sub now or like so you're a plumber. So if a general contractor wants to hire you, I'd be asking the general contractor, "Hey, tell me where you're working now. Who you doing this job for? Who are you doing? Give me the address. Yeah, I'm going to come by. I want to see the work. Like I want to see how you run the business. Let me meet the homeowner." So that's what I would do nowadays. Like, if you're going to work for us, I'm going to get to know. It's kind of like being a landlord and saying to the tenant, "Hey, I need to see where you're living currently, so I understand how you're going to take care of my place." Or dating somebody, it's like, "Hey, let me talk to the person you used to date, so I can get an idea for what you're really like, because that's most likely how you're going to treat me." Right? You need a person's past performance and behavior is the predicament or the way that they're typically going to behave going forward in the future. So, so it's tough, if those are the things I do now that I didn't do in the beginning. I wouldn't really check references and check people out. I wouldn't go to the job sites, you know, because usually somebody has 2 or 3 references, and it's generally, like, a really good friend of theirs, or it's the 1 or 2 jobs that they did really well over their 10 years in business, whereas they have, like, 100 jobs that they did shitty. So, even checking somebody's references is not always, like, a valid thing. I found the best way is find and then if here's what ends up happening. If you ask them, "Hey, where are you working right now?" and they don't have an answer, then that can change things and say, "Whoa, whoa, wait a minute. Like, what do you mean? When was the last time you had a job?" Like, so, and general contractors should have a lot of good references. So, but But it's funny, once got this employee manual together, we didn't need it as much anymore. Once you set up these processes for how you're going to fire somebody, because when we hire them, we show them that. And when they see that we have a real process, they behave better. Oh, thank you. Yeah. It a lot of times and this could just be, I can only speak from personal experience. So managing my own guys that I hired and then working with other remodelers, helping them manage their teams that they've hired. It's it for whatever reason, people, when you're a boss, it's like you can also become a babysitter if you're not careful. And a lot of times we have good intentions, but we blur that line because you want to be friendly to your people, right? And then you end up, you feel bad for them. You give them this, you do that. You start blurring the boss employee relationship, because you get to know the people. Like I've had employees, they'll invite me over to their kids' birthday parties, graduations, when they get married. And it's a fine line. I always have to explain it to, this is how I treat it. I say to people, look, I'm happy to hang out and go to a social function like that and be your friend at that moment. I'm not your boss. If I'm at your wedding, I'm not your boss. I'm your friend. But come Monday, when you get back from your honeymoon, like, you're an employee, I'm the boss. Don't, just because you had me at your wedding doesn't mean like, oh, now you can come in 3 hours late. Does that make sense? Like, some guys, that's what they start thinking. And the best way I've found to work with it is to explain to people, we're going to have two dynamics to our relationship, if that's where it goes. But because at the business, you have to keep it as a business, because otherwise people in their minds start confusing things. And they look, by default, most of us will be lazy if we can get away with it, right? Like, I'll do the bare minimum myself sometimes that I have to do, right? Because maybe I'm tired or my mind's on something else. That's just human nature. And unfortunately, over time, employees start to feel like, well, especially if they start seeing your lifestyle. If you have a good lifestyle because you have a profitable business, you start becoming friends with the employees. They're like, well, geez, he just bought a motorcycle. He's got the boat now, you know. And it's like, well, yeah, and I've been working at this for like 30 years. So like I, but they don't see it that way. They're like, well, he could afford to pay me a little bit more money. So, it's like, hey, you can make more money any day you want. Just start doing more value for the company. It's hard to have that conversation with people over time. So, but those are the joys of, you know, good employees recognize and they have the balance. They understand. Yeah, that must be nice. And I get it. Like, if I can remember my first job in high school. I worked for a guy that owned a gas station. It was a Hess gas station, if you're familiar. Like, we would wear white uniforms. We would come out. We'd fuel up your car. It was all cash. I'd have like $2,000 a day in my pocket all the time. It was a fun job. I got to learn how to handle money and work with people. I sold a ton of cigarettes. Everyone used to smoke back then. Um, and the business owner, he like made money. He made that gas station did well. He drove nice car. He had a nice house. He was doing nice things. And I could, as a young kid, I remember sitting there, it must be nice to be him, right? But then when you realize, like, that guy had to work really hard to get that. Now, that's not true for some people are given a business, their parents started one. But if you've started your business from the ground up, then you know how hard it is, and you know the risk that you take, the stress that you go under. It's not easy, right? And so, what I found too is, as I got older, I hired older employees to be like the key people in the company. They appreciated the stress and what it took to be the owner, because several of them had tried to be their own self-employed business owner at one time. And for one reason or another, they decided to go back and become an employee. So they would respect and that must be nice attitude wouldn't come from them, but it definitely, I get it from younger guys. They don't understand. So, grass always seems greener until people recognize that it still has to be watered or mowed. People's dogs still shit on any lawn. It doesn't matter. But you guys have any challenges with the employees? You I think too, over time, your mind for me at least, where my mindset was when I hired an employee, I when I once I understood what I was looking for in employees, you start choosing better employees as well. In the beginning, I was just looking for a body. I needed, somebody that had 2 legs, 2 arms, you know what I'm saying? And then over time, I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, I need to find they gotta like, I have to get a real application from these people now." So, it's interesting though, I tell you this, several of the companies that I help coach, they'll ask me to help, basically do the firing for them a lot of times, 'cause it's tough. A lot of people don't wanna fire somebody, and I'm not saying it's fun by any means, but I'm at a place in my life where I can separate the emotion and just look at the facts, and then, just you look at the person and say, "Hey, you're gonna find something better somewhere else." This just for whatever reason, this isn't the place. I don't know. It's not working. Most employees know it. They know that they're either skating, taking advantage, you know. You have very few I've never come across a situation where somebody was terminated and yet they, how do I say it? That it was really like not the thing that should have happened in the moment, at least in my situation. I'm not saying that companies don't fire people. Personally, um, that's just never been the case. Because usually, if I'm working with somebody and they've asked me to help, like I'll say, let's sit down and look at this objectively. And are we sure? Like what And then I'll usually say, let me go through my process. So I'll bring the person in. We'll do a meeting. We'll talk about the infraction. We'll come up with their improvement plan. Say, hey, I'm pulling for you. You let me know what I need to do to help you win here. This is what we're looking for. You know, and most of the time, the people, it's funny, you take the time, the energy, the effort, you come up with a plan, and you're like, "Hey, I'm here for you," and nothing. I don't know how to explain it. That's just been my personal experience, you know? What we've usually experienced is then people just go the other way and, you know, so and I don't know what causes it a lot of times either. I guess you know, some people just have chips on their shoulders, I guess. And to be fair, like the last company I worked with, they had like 40 we had 40 employees. We only had to fire 2 people, like, out of 40, like and this was over the course of, like, 2 years. It wasn't, like, right away. It was, like, just over time, the company is transitioning, company's standards are getting better, trying to go in a different direction. Sometimes not everybody wants to change with the company. So, but never had the situation come up where the person's like 3 months later said, we should have never done that." That's never happened. I guess that's the message I'm trying to say here. Alright. Anyway, any general questions about, remodeling, employees in general, subcontractors? Jay Allen, do you mainly do you work for the GC most of the time, or do you work for the homeowner? How does your like that project you just did, do you end up getting that straight with the homeowner, or are you the sub in that situation? Okay, with the GC. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Alright. Let me see what else. Have you had to ever fire an employee, Jay Allen? Oh, nice. All right. Very cool. That it's good to have a good GC to work for. Um, well, maybe yeah, maybe tonight's topic isn't the barnstormer that I was thinking. I think a lot of people like to talk about wanting to fire employee, but when it push comes to shove, it's a lot harder to do, especially if you've had somebody working for you for a long, or they're a friend of yours. It's tough. It's tough to have that conversation where you ask somebody, "Hey, like we're looking for this situation to be different than it is, not for your business." All right, for other employee to have. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I can't. I don't know what other states are like. The owner, there you go. You're the guy. The owner calls in and says, "Hey, take care of this for me." You be the good cop, bad cop, right? You end up being the guy. The way several like any company, uh, even a small, like we should do this too. I don't always have it, but usually you should have a witness. um, you know, because you just never know. But yeah, it's never fun. Let's see what's on for tomorrow night. Which is actually tonight, I guess, because it's already midnight. Got late. We'll talk a little bit about motivating employees tomorrow. So there's always a fine line between where you are not how to not micromanage, right? Like how do you direct, provide, or give the framework, but not micromanage, right? Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to be micromanaged. And if your employees require constant micromanagement, then you just have the wrong employees. That sh- that should never be the goal or the situation. So that means they fired. That's definitely not a bad way. That's one way to go about it for sure. Yep. Yeah, you just let the crew know that, sorry, brother, we don't have any projects. Hmm. Yeah, I I can imagine. Yeah, he just didn't want to deal with it in the moment. He wanted that person to go solve the problem, go find their own job on their own. I got it. You know, that's definitely one way to handle it. He found what worked for him. Be sitting there going, damn. And I thought I was working next week. Now I'm being told no work for like 2 weeks. Then you end up seeing his truck like around the corner on a job. You're like, that motherfucker, he's lying. Mm. Yeah, hey, look, everybody's gonna, I'm sure people are still doing it today. And I think it all depends on the size and the scale and a lot of things. Yeah. You know, if you have like a small crew, if the company is relatively small, I'm talking like less than 5 people. Yeah. If you've got like 15 people and they know that you're selling jobs and, yeah, they're not going to, they can read between the lines, I'm sure. Whatever. So I think what gets interesting is that, and I know not everybody has this mentality. For me, it's always been a bit of, I just want to treat other people the way I'd want to be treated as well. Um, If you for instance, if somebody wants to fire me, I'd rather they just go through the steps and just let me know. I'd rather not be strung along or told, "Hey, we just don't." I don't know. I appreciate more direct, straight. I'm more of that linear type of communicator. I will just say it and would like to hear it that way. But believe me, I definitely know that that is not common. That most people would rather like have this dance and smoke and mirrors and never address it, never talk about it. So I get it. I can see why people would do it that way. And I'm sure maybe some of the people that I've had to fire would have rather I just said to them, "Yeah, hey, we don't have any work for like the next 2 weeks. I'll call you if something changes." So it's hard to say. All right. Well, Jay Allen, if you I'm like, we need help. Why you exactly. Yeah, when you're the employee, you know that you needed help on those jobs for sure. Hmm. That's because now for the next 2 weeks, you're going to be doing both jobs, but only getting paid for one. Owner's going to be expecting those jobs to get done just like that other person's there, but you ain't getting paid his salary as well. Yeah, that's how that that's how that works, right? Because it usually takes a week or two to find a replacement at that point, anyway. Hmm. All right. Yeah, I bet it could take a month or two. It for sure. That's probably much more accurate, especially nowadays. If you're Yeah, when you're not looking. Correct. Yeah, like if you have to start the process from scratch, you don't have like 5 resumes in the drawer ready to go. Yeah, every bit a month or 2. And then I don't know how many companies are drug testing these days or background checks. We were a bonded when you're bonded and insured, I there was we had to do certain, how do I put it? I had to have you have to fill out a criminal background. I have to do a background check on you. I have to get you have to take a drug test, like, so the process there alone can take, 2 weeks. And that's even once we want to move forward with you. So, yes, you're absolutely correct. All right. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap this one up. So I thank you, Jay Allen, as always. Appreciate you contributing. Thank you for the comments. And yeah, we have. Let me take another peek. Give me 1 second. So probably the next 6 episodes I do like this will be around subs, employees, working with, your team, and then we'll shift into dealing more with homeowner issues after that. I've got about, but yeah, so we have a couple more leadership things on dealing with both your subs and with employees. So through that'll get us through part of next week. And then after that, we'll switch over to what it's like working with the homeowner, understanding that emotional roller coasters that the homeowners go through. So, anyway, hopefully it's good stuff. Yep. It's all the little things, right? It takes like 5 years to learn all these stupid little nuances that would have made so many of your earlier jobs so much easier had you just known, damn, I should have just known that. But you don't know it until it falls apart like 13 times on you. So, all right. Well, Jay Allen again. Yeah, 20. Yeah, I think I would say at least 10 years is more accurate minimum. I as I look back, those first few years were real rough for sure. A lot of really hard earned lessons, you know, that I kind of laugh at it now when I talk to somebody and I don't mean like negative, but like you look back and like it was painful. Like, whew, I'd never want to, I feel for people that are having to go through that kind of stuff now, because they don't know either, and the hardest lessons are the ones where you realize, like, damn, I did it to myself. What was I thinking? So it's interesting. A lot of guys, if they grew up, if you're, if you were fortunate enough to grow up in the family business or work at a really young age for somebody who showed you the behind the scenes, obviously that person's learning curve is a lot faster, right? Because they get those lessons that somebody else had to learn over the years. But if you've just like I didn't, my family wasn't a construction family. So like when I decided to get into contracting, that was something new for me and the family. So, there's a long, long learning curve for sure. And all the nuances that I never would have expected to be there. But all right. Let me just double check. I don't see any comments on YouTube. All right. All right. Well, Jayon, again, thank you. Appreciate you being here, and go crush that next job with that GC. And Sounds like he's doing good. So help him get those, help keep the two of you busy, get you through the winter. All right. Take care.